Hey, what's up, guys? On today's episode of the Locked On Knicks podcast, the New York Knicks fall to the Golden State Warriors. But before we get into the actual game, I'm going to tell you how Karl-Anthony Towns was failed by ESPN and his teammates.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Gavin Schall, your Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast, longtime credentialed media member, and of course, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. This is Locked On Knicks, in case you didn't know where you were tuning in, and we wanted to remind you that we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks. Give you the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 days a week, and be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans and subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We also want to remind you, in case you didn't know, that today's episode is included with a newsletter. That's right. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. The one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. It's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. On today's episode, we're going to talk through the sham. I'm going to call it that. The sham that was ESPN's description of what happened with Karl-Anthony Towns and Draymond Green. The sham that KAT's teammates did in dapping up Draymond after the game. Sham's probably the nicest way to put that. And then the Knicks' fourth quarter struggles offensively and just a general dearth of scoring in this game outside of the Knicks' top four, and Josh Hart putting up a big old donut on the Golden State Warriors, why his role might need to be reduced. But first, we get into Karl-Anthony Towns. And I was a little reticent to lead with this, right? Because look, the Knicks overall, this was a really interesting, compelling game in a lot of ways. Golden State, as hot as any team in the NBA, right? 14-1 now with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. And the Knicks, I have my issues with some of the way they went about things down the stretch of this game. And they just couldn't score the last 5 minutes or so. And yet they were super competitive against the team that's playing as well as any in the NBA without far and away their best player in Jalen Brunson. So it was a great effort. It was an interesting game. I'm excited to get into it, but I could just not quite let this go until the end of the episode because I think it's really important. And I think KAT, who by all accounts is just a fantastic human being, he got screwed over, just completely screwed over. And I think it starts with ESPN, maybe because I'm a broadcaster. The way they handled this is what lodges in my head even more than what happened with KAT's teammates. But let's start off with some terrible journalism from Richard Jefferson. Draymond, just for context, for people who have no clue what I'm talking about, which I'm sure is only a few of you. Draymond comes out on his podcast about a week ago and says with zero information that KAT was perhaps faking an injury to duck a matchup with Jimmy Butler in last week's game against the Warriors. What KAT was actually doing was mourning a close friend of him and his girlfriend, Jordan Woods, who died of cancer, as far as I understand it. And the way Richard Jefferson described that, even though this is public information, right? This is not niche Knicks Twitter information. Like the New York Post has written multiple articles about this. This is very much easily gathered public information. Richard Jefferson describes that as extracurricular conversation. The implication there was that Draymond had started dating KAT's ex or something of that ilk, right? Like something gossipy, something of like, well, these two guys have a history. They don't really like each other. It is like a stupid quarrel that they are both equally responsible for, when that couldn't be further from the truth. When the way KAT handled Draymond, again, like basically calling him a baby, not the word I want to use, but the word I have to use, Draymond calling him a baby, essentially, the way KAT handled that when his friend died, was to basically just like let it go and say like, hey, like I'm all about positivity, right? Like I don't want to get taken down there, right? I can't really comprehend how this was not planned incredibly thoroughly, how to address something this touchy in a production meeting by ESPN, right? Again, I don't broadcast on that level, but I do ESPN Plus broadcast, and even for that, we have pretty extensive production meetings. And if something like this had happened, we're going to spend probably 20 minutes saying, hey, like this requires some nuance. And if you are not only an ESPN broadcast, but on national TV, right, ABC as well, and this is your number one broadcast team, right, Mike Breen, Doris Burke, Richard Jefferson, whether or not Jefferson is worthy of being on that team. And I generally like RJ, right? I know most Knicks fans hate him. I find him pretty funny. Fan of the road tripping pod for a long time. Actually think he's a pretty good analyst as well. This was just a complete failure of a guy who was not trained in journalism, similar to Draymond Green, and it showed through here because that was just completely the wrong way to go about it. Even Mike Breen does not kind of immediately like jump on what RJ said and correct him. It takes until the second quarter when Lisa Salters then brings it up. And Lisa Salters, for my money, the best basketball sideline reporter out there, the most professional. I think she does fantastic work. And she comes out and she brings this up to KAT mid-game. And again, like not necessarily her fault. You don't have time in an interview to give like all the context of what happened, but that is why you don't ask that kind of question during an in-game interview. My goodness, like that is just a fundamental mistake by Lisa Salters and a fundamental mistake by the ESPN production team that lets her go out there and ask KAT that question in the middle of a game. To KAT's credit, because he is an incredibly gracious guy, like he doesn't call her out on it. He says, hey, I'm just trying to focus on the game. This is about the New York Knicks. It's not about me. But it's a BS question. It is an absolutely BS question. Bush League question. Like you cannot come out there and ask that for Lisa Salters. And only at that point does Mike Breen come out and actually explain what happened. And in doing so, like I would have preferred for Breen to inject a little opinion there and say, hey, like this wasn't right. KAT didn't do anything wrong, because I think that needs as much clarification as possible when you're talking to a national audience and not a New York audience for MSG that knows exactly what went down. I appreciate Mike doing that, and I empathize with his situation, because during a game, you don't really have a great window of opportunity to give context. And again, that's why either don't bring it up, or if you do it pregame where you have time to talk through it. RJ also referenced the fact that Draymond Green apologized. Here was Draymond Green's quote unquote apology. He said, oh man, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. But my comments that are made was that, quote, what I heard was this, and that's what I heard. That is not journalism, Draymond Green. You don't, if again, you're a player. If you say those comments after a game, that's one thing. But once you have a podcast, you need to be held to some basic journalistic standard. And a basic journalistic standard is that you do your research, right? And if Karl-Anthony Towns is missing a game, you ask around. And if you ask around just a little bit, you're probably going to find out, oh, it's because his friend died of a horrific freaking disease, and not because he is scared of Jimmy Butler, who, if my memory serves, KAT has mostly beat and always shows up to play against since those two have been on a team together. Draymond from there said, so I do send my well wishes to him and his family. We all experience death in one way or another, and we'll all experience it the same way one day. Profound. So it's unfortunate. You never wish that on anyone, but the Draymond Green show with Baron Davis must go on. He's an idiot. I hate to say that, because he is a genius of a basketball player, I'm sure in some ways very smart off the court. I'm sure he does stuff off the court that is fantastic for the community. And like, I never thought of myself as a Draymond Green hater. I've always really appreciated his game, but all that is idiotic. And then to end it with a plug for your podcast is just so utterly tone deaf. Instead of to come out and saying, this is what Josh Hart said. He said, I had a podcast, right? Be a man and own it. Say, hey, I screwed up. I didn't do enough research. I was talking out of my butt. I should have done the research, and KAT, I owe you a sincere apology. I'm grieving for you. And you know what? Maybe go ahead and donate $100,000 of the millions you've made to cancer research. Maybe go ahead and do that. I don't know. And then final quote, just to put a pin in this, from Richard Jefferson. If you've been in this league long enough, that chatter you understand. Draymond has a little egg on his face. Draymond Green's not backing down from what he said. And now they just get to play it out on the court. No, they don't. This is, again, implying some level of like, he said, Draymond said this, KAT said this. Again, KAT did nothing. KAT handled this wonderfully. That is garbage, Richard Jefferson. That is complete and utter garbage. This is not a basketball thing. This is Draymond Green coming out and publicly being a scumbag and KAT handling it wonderfully. So I'm sorry to Karl-Anthony Towns. A big screw you to Draymond Green, at least in this context. And then for KAT's teammates to come out after and all dap up Draymond. Like, what are we doing, guys? What are we doing? We all know what's going on. Josh Hart talked about it. I'm sure everyone was asked about it in the media. Like this is scummy. Like, have the guys back. KAT has had everyone's back this year. He hasn't been perfect. The defense has sucked, but he's played his butt off every game. And he's played through injuries for this team. And he's been supportive. And he's been a great teammate. And he's clearly ingratiated himself as someone who was the face of a franchise for almost a decade. He's come in here and seamlessly said, hey, Jalen Brunson is the number one guy on this team. Respect to Jalen Brunson. Respect to Josh Hart. Love everything these guys do. I'm just going to come in and fit in. I'm not going to make waves. Someone that people thought could come in and be an issue, and KAT off the court, he's been great. And he's been good for this community. And he's someone who has gone through a lot of crap, right? Losing his mom, losing 7 family members during COVID. And he's come through it all, still being a really just like sublime human being from everything we hear about the guy. And for like Mikal and Mitch and everyone to be dapping up Draymond after that, like, nah, like screw that guy. Walk off the court. Walk off the court. Hug Steph if you need to. Hug Moses Moody. Hug Gui Santos. Do not dap up Draymond Green after that. Have your teammates back. It is a really poor showing from a group last year that I thought was as connected as any group. And like Donte DiVincenzo, maybe some of this is him leaving. Maybe some of this is Jalen Brunson not being on the floor to provide that leadership. But Donte DiVincenzo last year, like, he's shoving Draymond Green. Isaiah Hartenstein, he's hitting Draymond Green with a hard foul at the beginning of the ball game. Like, those guys would have had KAT's back. And I don't want to make it, I don't want to fixate on what was lost because it's gone. Like, no point crying over spilled milk. But to me, that is like just a small example, a microcosm of the like slow development of the culture that was one of the best in the NBA that the Knicks built up last year. I really hated seeing that. And I don't have all the context. Those guys might have really close relationships with Draymond. They might have talked to him, and then he might have apologized to KAT behind the scenes. We don't know all that. If Draymond texted KAT separately and like corrected himself and said something that wasn't public, good on him. That's fantastic. I don't know that. But yeah, I thought the whole thing was handled really badly. But there was a basketball game, and I've spent 13 minutes not talking about it. So we're going to get into that next here on Locked On Knicks, talking about the Knicks' fourth quarter struggles. There were a whole lot of them down the stretch of this game. But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Guys, I would jump on this, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now is scoring 50 seemingly every other time he goes out there. Like, seriously, like he is single-handedly feeding families. But here's a few ways you can take advantage of this deal. After Shai, or maybe Jalen Brunson comes back and drops 50, or KAT comes out and drops 50, celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers from your favorite spot, delivered straight to your door. Also, if you have some late-night cravings, whether you're staying up watching highlights or just need a midnight snack, use Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big. Or fuel your watch party. Plan to catch the next game. Order your go-to snacks and meals at a discount and get ready for more high-scoring action. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day. Up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight. After a 50-point game, uneligible orders at participating merchants must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. We also want to tell you about our good buddies over at FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I'm picking my favorites. I've got an eye on a few underdogs this year. Shout out to my Oklahoma Sooners. Maybe they upset UConn in the first round. Jeremiah Fears, he's a killer. And FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. Staying in the action with tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tourney long. All right, guys, we are ready to finally get into the game. It was a good one. The New York Knicks, competitive throughout. Karl-Anthony Towns came out, just brilliant offense early in this game. Very first play blew by Draymond. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I'm going to scroll through my notes and double check. Did he get a dunk on the very first? Yeah, pump and go by Draymond for a dunk on the very first play of the game. KAT was cooking. OG was cooking. He had 13 points in something like his first 12 minutes on the floor. Deuce had 13 in the first half. Like, it was another game where all these guys down Jalen Brunson, like really, really gutty efforts. I mean, the way Deuce was trailing Steph this entire game could feed families, right? About as well as you could defend Steph Curry. Our buddy Jeff, co-host of the Hot Hand Theory podcast, he watches every single Warriors game, and he was saying that was a top 3 effort on Steph Curry this entire year. But the Knicks are ultimately doomed by their turnover issues, right? They have 13 of them. The Warriors score 19 points off those turnovers. They are doomed by their low three-point volume. The Knicks shoot pretty well from three, right? 9 for 24. That is 37.5% from distance. But they take 17 less than Golden State. Golden State shoots 13 for 41. They were hurt by some dicey defense at different points. Mitchell Robinson having some conditioning issues. A couple of guys falling down early in the fourth quarter. But more than anything else, they were doomed by their lack of offense late in this game. So I'm going to take you through all the possessions inside. I think this was about the final 3.5 minutes. So it starts off with Karl-Anthony Towns missing a 26-foot three. I don't totally hate that shot. It's one that he made for the most part throughout this game. So, like, not the end of the world. Again, you have to have a lower bar for what's a good shot when Jalen Brunson's not on the floor, right? He is the Knicks' fourth quarter offense. And of course, in a perfect world, would the New York Knicks have a little bit more balance? Would they have a little bit more optionality? Would they have a little bit more organized offense late in games, right? Running Mikal Bridges off a pin down to get him an elbow jumper, right? Like, it works in the first quarter, should work in the fourth quarter. And when you don't have, again, like Brunson, who is having not just the best clutch season in the NBA this year, he's having, from an efficiency perspective and a volume perspective, arguably the best, at least in terms of regular season, clutch scoring season in NBA history, right? So let's caveat everything with that is as big of a loss as you could have in the clutch, basically, like, pretty close to in the history of basketball. But anyways, KAT misses a 26-footer. Mikal then misses a pull-up jumper at the elbow. It was an okay shot. It was a pretty good shot. I don't mind Mikal getting to that. He did have Josh Hart on a cut for a layup. Josh Hart was about 0 for 5 on layups in a game that he finished with 0 points. So don't totally mind him passing up that pass. Then you cut to about 90 seconds to go, and you see where I'm skipping through here on a couple of possessions. So let me make sure I'm getting everything. The KAT shot happens at 3:48. Deuce made a pull-up 2 with 2:52 to go. KAT missed another deep 3 with 2 minutes left. That was a 29-foot three-pointer. Then you have the play where, so Mikal misses. Then you have Josh Hart. He gets a rebound with 90 seconds to go. And a typical Josh Hart play there, because there was no one back on defense. There was no one in front of him. He would push and he would get a layup. I don't know, probably about 70% of the time in that situation. But it was clear his confidence was totally shot. So instead of going and getting a layup, he takes the ball up the court really slowly and outlets it to Deuce. Deuce then still has the opportunity to go get the Knicks a layup because Josh runs the floor. Mikal was running the floor as well. And Deuce hits Mikal at the elbow. Mikal has Hart like wide open around the rim and OG cutting on the other side. And Mikal, for whatever reason, just does not make the pass. Instead, he just flips it out to Deuce. And sorry, I'm totally messing up my descriptions, but let me reset there. Josh gets the board with 1:30 left. He pushes up the floor. He kicks it to Deuce. Deuce then misses him for a layup. Then he swings it out to Mikal. Mikal then misses Josh again, wide open for a layup. And that was just, again, like I just don't understand why that pass isn't made. And then they end up settling for Deuce McBride driving at Steph. And this was in a game where he was pretty much perfect on both ends of the floor through 3.5 quarters. Deuce McBride just forced some weirdly tough shots late in this game. Like, he had an early shot clock, like running baseline jumper over Draymond Green, which is never really going to be what you want. And then from there, he, with 90 seconds left, he attacks Steph, and Draymond Green rotates all the way over. He is supposed to be guarding Josh Hart in the opposite corner, but because Josh Hart is such a non-threat and Golden State was treating him like such a non-threat, Draymond can come all the way from the right corner to the left block to block Deuce McBride's layup. Either he blocked it or Green gave Steph Curry credit for blocking. So that's another play. You don't score. The Knicks come down on the other end. You get another stop because your defense was exceptional this entire fourth quarter, right? The Warriors score what? They scored 22 points in the fourth quarter. Golden State only scored 43 points total in the second half. Like, I can't emphasize enough. The Knicks defense was mostly really great. And OG rebounds it, gets it up to KAT. Again, you have a 3-on-2. KAT, for whatever reason, doesn't push pace in that situation. He's a capable dribbler. He could push pace in that situation. Instead, he slowly brings it up, tries to attack a double, gets stripped by Gary Payton, and then just out of frustration, he fouls Draymond Green. And instead of being down 90-88 and just getting back on defense, and you have a chance to come back and get another stop, all of a sudden you're down 4. Deuce then has a terrible inbound, then the Knicks work a give and go from Deuce to Mikal. Mikal misses a 3 with Draymond Green, like, getting a good contest on it. Warriors come down, get another bucket, and then Deuce just a terrible inbound to Mikal, and the Warriors steal it, and that is the ball game. And in between those two plays, Draymond had a QB keeper on KAT, where I think the play would normally be for him to dribble handoff to Steph. Instead, they do a little bit of improv. Steph sets the screen. Draymond turns the corner, gets by KAT. Mikal Bridges should be there for help, but instead of doing just like one of the most fundamental things in the game of basketball, right? Watch man, watch ball. Mikal instead is just face guarding Moses Moody inexplicably, does not help on Draymond, and Draymond gets a layup again. If Mikal was at least looking and he decides that Moody was the bigger threat and KAT could have caught up, I kind of get that. That's fine at the end of the day, but ideally Mikal would have turned around. Ideally, KAT would have been able to keep up with Draymond Green. Disappointing way for this game to end, given everything I noted about the Draymond KAT hubbub, if that's the right word. I don't think it is. But yeah, this was a game where Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, Deuce McBride, and OG Anunoby were basically the Knicks' whole offense. And I think it is a little bit for those guys, aside from KAT, who should generally be able to, it is just a little bit too much to ask those guys to create at the end of games. Like, that's just not really who they are. If you're not going to have quality organized offense, right? Like, if you don't have Mikal running off a screen, or I guess give Tibbs a little credit for that inbounds play, did get Mikal a pretty decent look at a 3 coming off an inbounds play. Draymond Green, because he's, again, a genius defensively, covered it really, really well. But the even bigger thing, and the way Tom Thibodeau can help those guys, is like, just do not have Josh Hart on the floor if he's not going to take open threes, or if his teammates aren't going to pass it to him when he's wide open from 3, right? And that's a lot on Deuce to ask him to make that pass at his height with Draymond Green closing on him. But if someone else was there for an outlet, and then you can rotate it to Josh Hart, he gets a wide open corner 3. But if you're playing 4-on-5, which is what the Warriors were forcing the Knicks to do, and Josh Hart finishes his game 0 for 7, 0 for 2 from distance, 0 points, right? And he can't punish that in any meaningful way outside of some first quarter playmaking, then put Landry Shamet out there. And I know Shamet wasn't good in this game, right? He was 1 for 4 in 21 minutes, 2 points. But at least Shamet will be guarded from 3-point range. And if you don't guard him, he can make you pay because he can hit an open 3. So Landry Shamet ultimately should have been out there. No question about it. It would have opened things up a little bit from the Knicks offense. Despite that, the Knicks still could have won this game with some better execution, better shot making, better decision making. And it's a shame because they waste an exceptional defensive effort from Deuce McBride, an A+ defensive effort from OG Anunoby, and a pretty darn solid across the board defensive effort from everyone else that we'll get into next. We'll get into some of the individual stuff a little bit more. Some of the positives from these guys, because I've been all negative before. I thought KAT was really great offensively. I thought Deuce and Mikal were great offensively. Through 3 quarters, OG was bullying his way downhill. We'll talk about it all next here on Locked On Knicks. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Happens to me a lot. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and you start building wealth. They offer surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more, all in one convenience instead of juggling multiple apps. You can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Easy collabs, managing money with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, guys, we are back to wrap this one up here on Locked On Knicks. I wanted to get into some of the positives of this one. We'll start off with KAT. He was brilliant for the most part in this game offensively. 29 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists. Did that in just 30 minutes, right? Going up against one of the best big men defenders on planet Earth, and Draymond, a guy who's given him trouble in the past. And Breen mentioned on the broadcast, right, the first like high pressure, quote unquote, revenge game, even though it was mostly good vibes, was Minnesota. He had 32 and 20. This an FU game for him, and he puts up 29, 12, and 13 in just 30 minutes. Ideally, he wouldn't have had the foul trouble. Ideally, he wouldn't have had that 2-play sequence in the third quarter where clearly, based on his expression against Tom Thibodeau's advice, he decides to play drop defense on Steph Curry, which is just is very obviously not what you do against far and away the greatest shooter in the history of the sport, a guy who just made his 4,000th career NBA three. Need to be at the level. KAT was in drop on back-to-back plays. It was a mind-numbing brain fart from KAT, but does not negate everything he did so well. I was fired up after hearing that BS from RJ on the broadcast that KAT just toasts him on the very first play of the game. And then from there, it was just doing like a lot of really nice stuff. Had like a nice DHO with Mikal to get Steph switched onto him. Gui, Santos scrammed Steph out of the matchup, but KAT was able to score over him anyways. And then KAT like started really getting into his bag, right? Got a screen. I think it was from Mitchell Robinson. I think this was in the few minutes there on the court. We'll talk about those two playing together in a sec. KAT just like nasty escape dribble, step back three, like one of 3 guys at his height that can do that on planet Earth, right? It's him, Wemby, young KP could do that. I don't know. There's probably another guy or two, Alex Sarr on his best day ever. I don't know. Not too many guys at his height can do that. That was crazy. And then from there, bully ball drive on Buddy Hield has just a one-handed gather into a running floater. Those 2 plays back to back, like that's like I'm going to go as far as to say, I don't know, Embiid, maybe, I don't know. That might be unique. Like a guy at his height who can do that. And even halfway through the season, I feel myself growing numb to it. We shouldn't grow numb to it. Like that is incredible. And it's great to see KAT after like a 2-month period where he wasn't really the same guy offensively he was earlier this season. It's nice to see him like really getting into his bag again. Some dumb stuff like got Gary Payton II on him, didn't really take advantage of it. Then picked up his 3rd foul trying to stop Draymond from setting a screen. Like you just have to be smart. Without Jalen Brunson, like even if it costs the Knicks a basket here or there, like he just has to be so careful about staying on the floor and fouling out in 30 minutes. I mean, like late in the game, like it wasn't his fault. Like the Knicks were just sort of fouling because they had to, but fouling out in 30 minutes is not. It's borderline inexcusable in a game that Jalen Brunson was missing, right? The Knicks offense in the second quarter, they were very, very lucky to be in the game heading into the third because it completely died when he left this game. But then he comes back beginning of the second half, bombs a deep three, very first play, goes right at Draymond for a lefty running hook off the glass. He loves that shot, going right, going left. He can hit it either way. Another play, Draymond playing dirty, typical, grabs his jersey, doesn't matter, nails a jump hook over him. Pump, drive, draws a double, hits Mikal, cutting on a no look for a dunk. Brilliant play. And then the Knicks were down 86 to, or sorry, it was 84 to 75. KAT scores 11 straight points, mostly around the rim, caps it off with a three to get it all the way to 86-83. Again, like Knicks offense dying. He comes in, just single-handedly drags his team back in the game. It's superstar stuff. It's all NBA levels of offense from Karl-Anthony Towns. Just brilliant. OG Anunoby, I loved his game. I particularly loved his first quarter and a half where he was just a battering ram. Like his first bucket was cutting off of a KAT post up, using his butt to just move Jimmy Butler, which is hard to do. Like obviously Jimmy's a lot skinnier than him, but Jimmy is freaking strong, right? Like the core strength is there, and OG moved him like, I don't know. I keep using the guy's name. He's been playing really good basketball, so I feel bad. But like he was Gui Santos out there, right? For a layup. Then going downhill on Jimmy, crossover, takes a bump, still able to flip it in. Screens for Deuce, gets Moses Moody switched onto him, goes right at him, draws a foul, free throws, attacks post in transit, Quentin post, not like the post position, in transition, Euro layup, early offense, so essential. Without Jalen Brunson, like the minutes you have Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa on the floor, which was that, like that's the time to run at every opportunity because your half court, those lineups ideally wouldn't play. I think they're not going to play when Brunson's back, but if those lineups are out there, get as much early offense as humanly possible, right? Because the half court against the defense that is playing as well as the Warriors, I think a top 3 defense since the Jimmy Butler trade, you need early offense. And OG making a point to run the floor on a night where Josh Hart was passive, that is a really big play. And then the defense was just really, really good throughout. Like Josh Hart, this is one of his few highlights tonight, did a great job sliding with Steph, and then OG just shot in, poked it away coast to coast, another Euro. That was his 12th and 13th points in his first. Again, 12 minutes or so on the floor. Another play where he slid with Jimmy and then just stripped him. Like he's going up against some of the best offensive players in the world and just sort of dogging them. It was a really great defensive game. The last one I'll mention, like tracking Jimmy Butler, trying to go backdoor, Draymond threw him a lob, and he gets up there like a young Troy Polamalu and just knocks it away from him. OG was credited with 3 steals and a block. My eye, it might have even been more than that. I thought it was a brilliant game for him. Mikal, again, like the offense was there for Mikal Bridges. I should mention OG finishes as one with 23-9, 2 assists, 3 steals on just 15 shots, 7 of 9 free throws for OG Anunoby. That was something we were referencing early season, him not getting to the free throw line too often. He was living there in this game. That was great. Mikal, also super impressive, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 3 steals. Getting to his mid-range, though, ideally he gets up more threes. He was just 1 for 3 from distance in this game. Like he had a play early on where Steph literally falls to the ground, and Mikal, instead of taking a wide open 3, takes 2 dribbles in and hits mid-range. And it's clear that his confidence, even from the quarters where he shot great this entire season, it's just not really there right now. That's something that needs to change. Like he has to get up a lot of threes. He has to make a lot of threes for the Knicks to have any chance of getting further than the second round in this year's playoffs. I think he's someone who benefits a lot from Mitchell Robinson being back. We talk about how poor of a screener Towns is, and Mitch was that early in his career. He's turned himself into a really good screener. Mikal got a great one from Mitch, goes right at Quentin post for a short fadeaway. Then one of my favorite sequences of the game, Mikal, like this is how you weaponize Mikal off the basketball. And again, I rip Tom Thibodeau when it doesn't happen. You have to give Tom Thibodeau credit when it does happen. Mikal sets a ghost screen on Quentin post, for campaign. He pops out of it. Payne hits him, then just takes a speed dribble towards OG Anunoby, flips it to him, but doesn't stop moving, keeps cutting through. OG passes it right back to him. Mikal straight to the rim for a layup. That is Phoenix Suns Mikal Bridges incarnate, right? A guy who never stopped moving, endless motor, a demon off the ball and on the ball, not because he's this brilliant one-on-one breakdown guy, but because he's always in motion, because he's running towards the basketball. He's running with the basketball. He gives up the basketball. He keeps on running, right? If there's anything you can learn from watching Steph Curry, is that is a very dangerous way to play. That is a way to weaponize shooting. It is a way, in the case of Mikal Bridges, to weaponize your length and your ability around the rim, even if you can't get there yourself. Really nice pass from OG Anunoby to get it right back to him. I love that play. Another play I really loved from Mikal Bridges, right? Josh Hart sees that Steph Curry's on him, right? And the Knicks, as per usual, do not take advantage of the fact, quite often enough, that Steph Curry spent a good amount of time in this game on Mikal Bridges. But Josh Hart sees it, calls it out, says, Mikal, get your ass in the post. Sorry, I can't say that. Get your butt in the post. And Draymond comes over for a token double, but Jimmy Butler comes down for a token double, and Mikal just waits it out. He lets OG space, right? And then that pulls Jimmy Butler away, and then he just rises up over Steph, hits the jumper. And I love that because Mikal was patient. And too often this year, Mikal's had a mismatch, but because he doesn't want to mess up, because he doesn't want to take up too much of the clock, he'll kick it out. He'll be passive. No, he waited it out. He was aggressive. He got to his spot. He made the shot. Really nice play by Mikal Bridges. I mentioned all the fourth quarter struggles, but before that, tied the game at 88 on a really tough reverse pivot fadeaway over Moses Moody. That's a big-time shot for Mikal Bridges. Has to keep that confidence, has to keep shooting, has to keep scoring. Obviously, he missed 2 more down the stretch of this game. He missed some passes. That's okay. He hasn't gotten a lot of reps in late-game situations this year. I'm hoping with time, with developing more rhythm, that continues to get better. Last 2 guys I want to shout out, Deuce McBride. Again, as well as Steph Curry's been defended all year, getting into his bag, pumping by closeouts to drain elbow jumpers. Another really nice sequence from Mikal. We had another pick and roll with Mitch, sprayed it to Josh. Josh, one of his few good plays of the night, hard gallop into the lane, throws it back out. Deuce hits the 3. And Josh, the one thing he did, he was set up Deuce McBride. Another play where he faked it to Mikal. Moses Moody fell asleep. Deuce recognized it, curls up to the corner. Josh just flips it to him. Deuce off the catch, hits a quick 3. And then the sequence from Deuce to end the first half, a pull-up 2, a catch and shoot 3 after Golden State had this extended run. They took it to like a 7-point lead. And if not for a Jimmy Butler just circus shot to end the first half, Knicks would have been down, I think, by just 1 at the half. I can double check that. And then first play of the second half, right? He's back in Steph's grill, tracking him perfectly. Steph tries to go to a step back, rises up, swats it. More great D, like makes Steph like have a low pickup on his dribble, ties him up, gets a jump ball, drives, healed later on for a lefty layup. Really nice finish for a guy who's been struggling to finish. Josh Hart, I don't want to belabor the point. He was terrible for most of this game. Again, some good passing in the first quarter. Shot a laser at one point to Mitchell Robinson, who just had no chance in it. The ball ends up sailing out of bounds, like swatted at the rim all over the place, missed that push late. Right now, he's a guy who is overtaxed from a work perspective. And frankly, he's like overexposed right now from a skill perspective. And in a best case scenario on a team with a genuine chance to win a championship, I'm more convinced of this than ever that Josh Hart is ideally a 6th man. And he's done so much well this year. He's played brilliant basketball. And I made a case for him first half of the season to be an all-star, but you see his limitations. And I've come to accept his limitations more and more as the Knicks play good teams. And they just weaponize the fact that he's on the floor. And even defensively at times, they weaponize that he's on the floor and that he's had a tendency all year to fall asleep. Like he lost track of Steph at one point and let Steph go backdoor and get a wide open layup, which generally isn't something that should happen. And I wonder at times, like, what does this team look like if they're, I don't know if Minnesota was open to this, probably not, but if they could have traded Hart instead of Dante, I don't know. I think you probably just have different problems instead of the problems you have, right? You're smaller than you currently are. You have rebounding issues, but I can't help but think. In fact, I know this offense would hold up just so much better in games like this if you had Dante DiVincenzo in Josh Hart's place. So that was a real loss. And I don't know if the Knicks had a decision to make there, but if it was possible, they could have included Josh instead of Dante. Well, I think that might ultimately go down as a mistake. Final thing, Mitchell Robinson, some fun minutes between him and KAT. Now in 19 possessions together, they have a plus 63.2 net rating. I cannot drive home enough that I was reticent to even bring up that stat because 19 possessions is just frankly, a meaningless sample size. The only reason I do bring it up is because the eye test says that those two have looked good together. I like how they've looked together. And I understand why Tom Thibodeau is not playing them a lot, because Jalen Brunson, again, pushes everyone up a spot in the rotation. In this game in particular, KAT was in foul trouble, and Mitchell Robinson is just clearly not in shape to play more than 19 minutes, right? Doris Burke, I know people were ripping her at times on the broadcast, but she did a really good job pointing this out, that Mitch just ran out of gas. Like on one of his first possessions just played awesome D on Steph Curry, stayed down, got a great contest, forced an air ball. Again, unless you got a piece of it, but something you rarely see. It reminds you of a young Mitchell Robinson switching onto James Harden and blocking his step back threes when Harden was on the Rockets in his prime. But then like you see him start to tire. It had a play where he stops Jimmy on a switch, then seamlessly jumps over to Gary Payton the second, contests his rebound, forces a miss, basically guards two guys in one play. But then it was like the gas tank hit zero. Jimmy gets an offensive rebound, and Mitch literally can't even like bring himself to step over and get a contest on Jimmy Butler, right? He's just sitting there huffing and puffing. He had just one rebound in his first 10 minutes on the floor. It is just not there yet right now. There was another play where he's guarding Looney out on the perimeter, and he sees Jonathan Kuminga off him, is crashing to the rim for a putback, and he is just standing there holding his shorts. And look, we've at times complimented Mitch's conditioning since he's been back. I frankly, I don't see it right now. Like he is out of gas, and I'm hoping he's running during his downtime. I hope they have the G League guys or the practice squad guys. Like, do the Knicks have a practice squad? Not really, but let's just say guys 10 through 15. Like, I hope they're scrimmaging with him against the coaches or against whoever they bring in. Like, he just needs to run. He needs as much time playing basketball as possible. All right, guys, I went way longer than I expected. I'm just going to put up the one comment we got. It's from Moody Fan. My blood was boiling when I saw some of the guys hugging Draymond after granted game as KAT walked off. Yeah, it was BS. That's a somber note to end on. Good effort by the Knicks against a great team. Just still making some very avoidable mistakes offensively late in games, both in personnel and how they use that personnel that I think ultimately fall on the head coach. But until next time, which will be very soon because I put this episode out late, I'm Gavin Schall. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning with a recap of that game against the Miami Heat. Until then, be good. See you soon.